The rain fell hard on the alien outpost as she stood near the grave. The ground was fresh, the soil still wet from the shovels of those who buried him. Her partner, her bond, her shield in battle was gone. The alien woman kept her eyes fixed on the stone marker, her hands clenched tight. Around her others whispered, but she ignored them. Their words were dust in the wind. Her partner was gone and nothing could replace him. But the council thought differently. They had already chosen a replacement. They had already assigned her a new partner, a human. When she first heard it, she thought it was a cruel joke. How could they even compare her proud, brave partner with a human soldier? Humans were small, fragile, untested. They were not built like her people, not bred for war the way her kind was. To her, the order was an insult. To lose her partner and then be forced to stand beside a human, it was a wound deeper than any blade could cut. She heard footsteps behind her and felt her chest tighten. She knew it was him. The human, he spoke softly. "I'm sorry for your loss." She did not turn around. She did not want to see his face. She hated the calm in his voice, as if he thought he could share her grief. "Leave," she said, her tone like ice. He paused but did not go. "We're assigned together," he said after a moment. "I'll follow orders, but I'm not here to replace him. I'm here to make sure you live." Her hand twitched. She wanted to strike him, to tell him he could never say her partner's name, never even breathe the same air as the one she lost. But she stayed silent. She stared at the grave and let the anger boil inside. The human did not speak again. He stood a short distance away, quiet, as the storm rolled above. Later that night, when the sky turned black and the moons rose high, the alarm broke through the stillness. Sirens wailed across the outpost. The sound of rushing boots, the clash of metal, the thrum of weapons charging, it all filled the night. Raiders had been spotted at the edge of the valley. She rushed out with the others, her weapon ready. She saw the human there too, already armored, already holding his strange earth-made rifle. Their eyes met for a second and she felt the fire rise in her chest. She did not want him there. She did not need him. But the raiders came fast, their war cries echoing. The ground shook as heavy machines marched closer. Her squad took position along the ridge. Energy blasts lit up the darkness. Screams of pain followed each strike. The human moved beside her, firing in sharp bursts. His aim was steady, his motions quick. She tried not to watch, but she could not ignore it. His style was different from her people, less brute strength, more cunning and speed. Still, her mind repeated the same thought. He is not my partner. He will never be my partner. The fight dragged on, and the air filled with smoke and fire. She cut down an enemy with her blade and felt the heat of a blast pass close to her head. When she turned, she saw the human had pulled her out of its path. Her anger deepened. How dare he save her as if she needed it? She pulled away, snarling. He did not answer, only kept firing. The raiders pulled back after heavy losses, leaving silence behind. The ridge was littered with the fallen. Her chest heaved as she looked around. The commander's voice broke through the comms. "Tomorrow, patrol in the forest. You two will go together." Her heart sank. Alone with him. Alone with the human who was meant to replace the one she lost. She wanted to scream. She wanted to tear the sky apart with her rage, but the order was law, and so she stood still, her weapon dripping with blood, her heart heavy with fire, knowing that tomorrow she would walk into the dark forest with the one she hated most. The forest was alive with whispers. Strange lights moved between the trees. Shadows crawled across the ground and the air smelled of damp soil and hidden danger. She walked ahead, her blade drawn, her sharp eyes scanning for threats. Behind her came the human, his boots quiet, his strange rifle held tight in his hands. She hated this. Every step beside him was a reminder of what she lost. Her real partner had walked here once, tall and strong, his voice steady in the dark. But now all she heard was the slow breathing of a human she did not trust. He broke the silence first. "The canopy is thick. No signal from the comms. If raiders are out here, we'll have no warning." She did not answer. Her jaw was set like stone. He spoke like he knew what he was doing, but in her heart he was still weak. A fragile creature forced into a role that did not belong to him. Still, she noticed something. The way he moved, quiet, careful, scanning the ground for signs. His eyes flicked to broken branches, to claw marks in the soil, to sounds most soldiers ignored. He was not charging blind. He was hunting. It unsettled her, though she would never admit it. Hours passed as they moved deeper into the wild. The silence grew heavy. Finally, he spoke again, his voice calm. You don't have to like me, but we're breathing the same air right now. That means we have the same enemy. Her grip tightened on her blade. You are not my partner. You never will be. He didn't argue. He only nodded as if he already knew. The forest suddenly shifted. The wind died. The buzzing of insects stopped. She froze, her senses screaming. Something was wrong. The human raised his rifle slowly. We're not alone, he whispered. From the shadows came the sound of low growls. Shapes moved between the trees. Glowing eyes staring from the darkness. Her blade hummed as she raised it, ready for blood. The first beast leapt. She swung hard, cutting it midair, but another rushed from behind. The human's rifle cracked with fire, dropping the second beast before it reached her back. Her breath caught. She turned, glaring at him. But before she could speak, another three broke from the bushes. They fought together, though neither wanted to admit it. She struck with raw power, her blade flashing, her body strong. He fired with speed and precision, each shot placed with deadly care. For every one she cut down, he saved her flank. For every one he shot, she kept the path clear. When the last beast fell, silence returned to the forest. The smell of blood and smoke filled the air. She stood tall, chest heaving, sweat shining on her skin. He lowered his rifle slowly, his voice calm even in exhaustion. Not bad. Her anger boiled again. Do not speak as if you know me. He gave a small shrug. You're alive. That's enough for now. The words stung more than they should have. She turned away, refusing to meet his eyes. Her partner once said the same thing after saving her in battle, and now this human dared echo it. They moved again, deeper into the forest, the night growing darker, the trees closing in like prison bars. She walked faster, wanting distance, but the human stayed close, scanning the shadows. The silence between them grew thick again. She wanted to break it with rage, to tell him to go back to his own people, to leave her alone in grief, but something in her chest kept the words trapped. A sudden sound cut through the night. A branch snapped. Both froze. This was no wild beast. The sound was heavier, slower, deliberate. The human lifted his rifle. Raiders, he whispered. She felt her heart quicken. If the raiders were here, then the forest was no longer their patrol ground. It was a trap. Suspense clawed the air as more branches cracked, footsteps circling. Figures moved between the trees, armed, armored, waiting. Her blade hummed with light. His rifle clicked as it charged. Back to back they stood, the human and the alien woman, surrounded by unseen enemies in the darkness. The forest grew darker with every step. The tall trees rose like towers, their branches weaving a roof that swallowed the moons. A cold mist crawled low across the ground, curling around their boots, hiding what lay beneath. She walked with her blade ready, each breath sharp, each muscle tense. Behind her, the human moved in silence, his rifle steady, his eyes searching the shadows. They were being hunted. She could feel it. The air itself seemed alive, holding its breath, waiting for the strike. Her partner, the one she lost, had walked this very path once. He had laughed at the strange glowing insects, had warned her to stay alert when the forest went too quiet. That memory stabbed her now. She wanted him beside her, not this human who carried himself with calm that angered her even more. A sound broke the stillness, soft, almost gentle. A twig snapping under pressure. She spun, blade flashing, but nothing was there, only fog drifting between the trees. The human crouched, touching the ground with his fingers. Tracks, he whispered. His voice was low, steady. Big ones, fresh, she frowned. You think you can read this place? It is not your world. He looked up at her, calm. Danger leaves the same signs everywhere. Before she could reply, a deep growl rolled through the mist. It was not like the beasts from before. This was heavier, older, with power in its voice. The trees seemed to shiver at the sound. She tightened her grip. Her heart raced, but her anger kept it steady. Stand back. You will only get in my way. The human did not answer. He only raised his rifle, eyes fixed on the darkness ahead. The growl came again, closer this time, and then the shape appeared. It rose from the fog like a nightmare. A creature taller than the trees themselves, with armored hide and burning red eyes. Its claws dug into the soil, tearing earth apart as it moved. Each step shook the ground. She felt her chest clench. Even her partner, her true warrior, had once warned her about this. Forest hunters, beasts that no normal squad dared face, and now here she was with a human she despised staring at death itself. The creature roared, shaking the branches above. Birds scattered in panic. She struck first, charging with her blade raised high. Energy sparked as she swung, cutting across its thick skin. The beast howled in pain, lashing out with claws that tore bark from the trees. The human fired, his rifle bursting with sharp light. Each shot struck the beast's eyes, its joints, the softer places between its scales. He was not fighting with raw strength like her. He was fighting with precision, but even together they struggled. The creature swiped, sending her crashing against a tree. Pain shot through her side, but she rose again, refusing to fall. She would not die here. Not beside a human. The beast turned its fury on the man. He rolled aside, firing as he moved, keeping just out of reach. But she saw it. The beast was faster now, adapting, cornering him, her breath caught. For a moment she saw it, his life about to be crushed, his body broken. And something inside her twisted. Hatred still burned, but so did something else, something dangerous, fear of losing him. With a scream, she leapt forward, her blade glowing brighter than fire. She struck the beast across its throat, sparks exploding as the blade tore deep. The creature staggered, its roar echoing through the valley. The human seized the chance. He fired a final burst straight into the creature's skull. With a thunderous crash, the monster fell, shaking the earth. Silence followed. Only the sound of their ragged breaths filled the night. She leaned against a tree, chest heaving, her body trembling. The human stood nearby, blood dripping from a cut on his arm, smoke rising from his rifle barrel. Their eyes met in the silence. For the first time, she did not see weakness in him. She saw survival. She saw someone who refused to fall no matter what hunted them. But she pushed the thought away, forcing her heart to harden again. Still, she could not ignore what he had said earlier. Danger leaves the same signs everywhere. Suspense tightened around them as the forest shifted again. In the distance, more growls rose, not one but many. Shadows moved between the trees, circling, waiting. The forest hunter was only the beginning. The night sky was hidden behind branches, and the forest burned with glowing eyes. Dozens of them moving in circles, low growls rumbling through the mist. The great beast they had slain lay at their feet, its body steaming, its blood soaking the earth. But the death cry of the forest hunter had called its kin. Now the ground trembled with their approach. She stood tall, her blade humming with energy. Her chest ached from the blow that had thrown her into the tree, but she refused to show weakness. She would fight until she had nothing left. The human was at her side, breathing hard, his rifle smoking from the last shot. His face was pale from blood loss, but his eyes stayed sharp. He shifted his stance, steady and ready, as if he had been waiting for this moment his whole life. "They'll come in waves," she muttered. "Too many to kill." He wiped blood from his brow with the back of his hand. "Then we make them pay for every step." Her jaw clenched. For a moment his words sounded exactly like her lost partner's, and it stung deep inside her chest. She wanted to shout at him to push him away, but the shadows closed in and there was no time for hate. The first beast charged. It leapt through the mist with claws wide. She met it head on, her blade slicing through its throat. Blood sprayed across the soil. Another lunged from the side, but the human's rifle cracked and sent it tumbling. They fought like a storm. She swung with fury, her strikes fueled by grief and rage. He fired with precision, each shot burning through the fog. They moved together without planning, without words, covering each other as though their bodies remembered a rhythm their minds still denied. But the beasts kept coming. For everyone that fell, two more slipped from the shadows. Their glowing eyes burned in the darkness, circling closer, testing their strength. She screamed with rage as her blade cut another down, but the weight of the battle pressed on her shoulders. Her wounds slowed her. Pain shot through her ribs, her vision blurring for a moment, then she heard it, a sharp cry. She turned and her heart froze. The human was on the ground, his rifle knocked away. A beast loomed over him, its jaws opening wide. Without thought, she hurled herself forward. Her blade sank into the creature's spine and it collapsed with a howl. She grabbed the human's arm, pulling him to his feet. "Stay alive," she snapped. His lips curved in the faintest smile despite the blood running down his face. "Wasn't planning on dying tonight?" For the first time, her anger cracked. She felt something else in her chest, something strange and unwelcome. Fear for him. She pushed it down, forcing herself to focus. The ground shook again. A larger beast pushed through the mist, its body scarred, its eyes burning brighter than the rest. The leader. Her blade hummed louder as she raised it high. The human grabbed his rifle, limping forward to stand beside her. The beast roared, shaking the trees, and charged. She struck, her blade slashing across its chest, sparks flying as steel met armored hide. It swiped back, claws raking across her side. Pain ripped through her and blood soaked her armor. She fell to one knee. The human shouted her name, not in command, not in anger, but in desperation. He threw himself between her and the beast, his rifle blazing. Each shot struck its eyes, its mouth, the weakest points. The creature roared and swung at him, the claws slicing across his side. He staggered but refused to fall. She forced herself up, her vision burning red. With one final scream, she drove her blade deep into the beast's throat. It convulsed, thrashed, and collapsed, shaking the ground as it died. Silence followed. The pack froze, their glowing eyes watching. Then one by one they melted back into the forest, leaving only mist and blood behind. Her chest heaved. She dropped to the ground, clutching her wound. Beside her, the human fell too, his body shaking from blood loss. She turned her head to him, her voice weak but sharp. "Why did you do that? You could have run." His eyes half closed, he whispered, "Because I promised. I'd keep you alive." Her throat tightened. She had hated him from the moment he was assigned. But lying there in the blood-soaked forest, she realized something terrifying. She no longer saw him as weak, and worse, she no longer saw him as only a replacement. The cave was cold and damp, its walls glistening with drops of water that fell into shallow pools. She opened her eyes slowly, her body aching, her side wrapped in rough bandages. The air smelled of smoke from a small fire burning in the center, and the faint sound of rain echoed from outside. For a moment she thought she was alone. Then she saw him. The human sat near the fire, his rifle resting against the wall, his body slumped but alert. Blood stained the bandage on his side, yet he had used what little strength he had to tend her wounds first. His eyes lifted when he noticed she was awake. "You're alive," he said softly. Her throat tightened. The words were the same her partner once said after a battle. It cut her heart open, making it harder to breathe. She wanted to snarl at him, to remind him he could never take that place, but the weight of her exhaustion held her down. She forced her voice to stay steady. "You risked your life again." He gave a faint smile. "That's the job." Her hands curled into fists. "You could have died." His eyes darkened. "So could you. Would you rather I let that happen?" The silence between them was heavy. She looked away, staring into the flames, listening to the crackle. He was human. He was fragile. Yet he had stood against monsters that would have killed 10 of her kind. Why, not for glory, not for pride, but for her. Her voice broke the silence. "I hated you." He didn't flinch. "I know." "I thought you were weak," she said, her chest rising and falling. "I thought you were an insult to his memory." His gaze was steady, calm. "I never wanted to be your partner's shadow. I only wanted to fight beside you." Her breath caught. No one had spoken like that before. Her people always measured worth in bloodlines, in strength, in victories. But this human spoke of choice, of standing beside someone even when unwanted. She wanted to argue, to rebuild the wall around her heart. But the words refused to form. Instead, she asked, "Why fight so hard for me? You don't even know me." He leaned back against the stone wall, wincing from his wounds. "Because every soldier deserves someone watching their back. And because I've seen too many graves already. I don't want to see another." For the first time since her partner's death, her chest softened. She stared at him through the flickering firelight, her anger twisting into something else she could not name. But before she could say more, the ground shook. Dust fell from the cave ceiling. The human grabbed his rifle instantly, grimacing at the pain in his side. She sat up, her blade humming faintly in her hands. The rumble grew louder. Voices echoed from outside, harsh, guttural, filled with malice. Raiders. Her heart raced. The beasts were gone, but worse had come. The raiders had tracked them through the forest. And now they were at the cave's mouth, blocking the only way out. The human's face was pale, his body weak, but he stood tall. "They found us." She rose too, her wound burning, but her spirit aflame. For the first time she looked at him not with hatred, but with something closer to trust. He had saved her life. He had carried her here. He had listened. And now they would die or survive together. The firelight flickered against the cave walls as footsteps echoed closer, weapons clanging. The raiders shouted to each other, their laughter cruel, hungry. She raised her blade. He raised his rifle. They shared one quick glance, a silent vow passing between them. Whatever came through that cave opening, they would face it side by side. And in that moment, the wall in her heart cracked. The cave mouth glowed with torchlight. Shadows of armed raiders stretched across the stone walls as their laughter echoed inside. The sound was sharp, cruel, like predators toying with prey. She tightened her grip on her blade, her breath heavy but steady. Beside her, the human checked his rifle, the barrel scorched but still ready. Her heart pounded. They were both wounded, both tired. She knew the numbers outside were too many. Yet when she looked at him, standing there despite the blood soaking his side, she felt something shift inside her chest. He should have been broken. Instead, he stood like unshakable rock. The raiders stormed in. Their eyes glimmered in the firelight, their armor patched from stolen battles, their weapons sharp and dirty. The first came rushing with a snarl. She struck him down with one slash, her blade glowing in the smoke. The second raider fell from a clean shot to the skull, the human's rifle ringing loud, but more poured in. The cave became a storm of chaos, steel clashing, weapons firing, sparks flying against stone. She moved with fury, each strike fueled by the rage of her loss, by the grief she carried. The human fought with precision, his shots deliberate, every bullet protecting her back. They were two broken warriors, yet together they carved through the darkness like fire through dry wood. Still, the enemy pressed. A raider's strike slipped past her guard, slicing her arm. Pain seared, but before the blow could finish, the human slammed into the raider, knife flashing as he drove it into the enemy's throat. Blood sprayed across the cave floor. He gasped, barely steady, but refused to fall. She snarled at him. "Fool, you'll die like this." His teeth clenched, his eyes fierce. "Better than letting you die alone," her breath caught. The words cut deeper than any blade. She wanted to deny them, but her chest burned with something more than rage, something dangerously close to trust. The fight raged on. The raiders shouted war cries, their blades flashing in the firelight. She felt her strength slipping, her body heavy from blood loss. Her swings grew slower, her breath ragged. Then she heard the sound that froze her blood. Click. The human's rifle was empty. He threw it aside without hesitation, pulling a combat blade from his belt. His face was pale, his body trembling, but his eyes burned like fire. He fought with desperate speed, slashing, striking, blocking with every ounce of strength left in him. She covered his flank, her blade carving through armor and bone, but she knew the truth. If they kept fighting like this, they would both fall. A raider leader pushed through the smoke. Taller, stronger, scarred from years of war. His weapon was a heavy axe, its edge glowing with stolen energy. He raised it high, roaring as he charged. She braced herself, her body shaking, but before she could move, the human stepped forward, placing himself between her and the towering enemy. Her eyes widened. No, the axe came down. The human caught it on his blade, the steel shrieking from the impact. He staggered, knees nearly buckling, but he held. With a roar, he shoved back, slamming his knife into the raider's chest. The leader howled, collapsing, but the human crumpled too, his body finally giving way. Blood poured from his wounds as he hit the ground, his breath shallow. She dropped beside him, slashing down another raider that dared come close. Her blade dripped with blood, her heart thundered in her chest. She grabbed his hand, her voice shaking for the first time. "Why? Why would you throw your life away for me?" His lips moved, his voice faint, breaking. "Because you're worth it." Her throat closed, her eyes burning. She had hated him, cursed him, wanted him gone. Yet here he was, lying broken because he refused to let her die. The surviving raiders began to retreat, dragging their wounded leader, snarling in defeat. The cave grew quiet again, save for the crackle of the fire and the ragged sound of his breathing. She leaned over him, her blade still glowing faintly, her chest torn between fury and fear. "Do not die," she whispered, her voice raw. "Do not leave me too." The human's eyes met hers, dim but steady. His lips curved into the faintest smile. "I told you, I'm not here to replace him. I'm here to fight beside you." And then his eyes closed. The silence that followed was heavier than any battle cry. The cave was silent except for the faint crackle of the fire and the shallow sound of his breathing. He lay on the cold stone floor, blood soaking his torn armor, his skin pale in the dim light. She knelt beside him, her blade still humming weakly in her hand, her chest heavy with fear. She pressed her palm against his wound, her fingers trembling. She had lost one partner already, buried him under the rain and the whispers of her people. She could not bear the thought of losing another. Not like this, not after everything. "Stay with me." she whispered, her voice breaking. Do not leave me. Not you. His eyes fluttered open, weak but alive. He looked at her as if even now, through pain and blood, he could still see something worth fighting for. You sound different, he said faintly. Her throat tightened. You broke something in me. The walls I built. The hate I carried. I did not want you here, but now I... She stopped, her voice shattering. She could not finish the words. Outside the cave, dawn touched the forest. Light crept through the mist, shining on the bodies of raiders left behind. Birds began to call again, timid at first, then louder, as if the world itself believed the night of blood was over. But she knew it was not finished. The raiders would return. The forest would not forgive weakness. If he stayed like this, he would die. She remembered the healing stones her people carried, rare and powerful, locked away by the council for warriors of bloodline only. Her hand brushed against the small pouch tied to her belt. She had one left. It had been meant for her if the battle demanded. Her chest ached with the choice. Her people would call her weak if she gave it to him. They would say she dishonored her partner's memory. To waste such a treasure on a human. But when she looked down at him, at the man who had stood when no one else would, who had bled not for glory but for her, she knew the truth. Slowly she pulled the stone out. It glowed faintly warm in her palm. His eyes widened. No, he rasped. Save it. For yourself. Her jaw tightened, her tears burning. You already saved me. Again and again. Now it is my turn. Before he could protest, she pressed the stone against his chest. Light spread through his body, sinking into his wounds, sealing the torn flesh, giving life back to his failing heart. He gasped, his back arching, then collapsed again, breathing deeper, stronger. She let out a shaking breath, her hands falling limp at her sides. Relief washed over her, heavy and overwhelming. Minutes passed before his eyes opened again, clearer this time, steady. He looked at her in silence, then spoke softly. You gave it to me. You shouldn't have, she shook her head. I would rather break every law, burn every tradition than watch you die. His gaze held hers, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Not duty, not command, something deeper. Outside, the forest grew brighter. The mist began to lift and the songs of life returned. She helped him sit up, her arm strong around his back. He leaned on her, his strength not fully restored, but his spirit unbroken. Together they stepped out of the cave into the morning light. The forest stretched wide, scarred by battle but alive. Smoke curled in the distance where the raiders had fled. Her people would never understand what happened here. They would see a human standing where her partner once stood and call it insult, weakness. But she no longer cared. She had seen his courage. She had seen his will. He was not her lost partner. He was something different. Something she had never expected, never wanted, but now could no longer deny. She looked at him as the sunlight touched his face. For the first time, she let herself breathe without anger, without hate. You are not a replacement, she said softly. You are my partner. He turned his head toward her, his lips curving into a quiet smile. Then we fight together. The forest stretched before them, dangerous and endless, but she no longer felt alone. And in her heart, where grief once lived, a new fire began to burn.